Welcome to the College Football Bros. I am Trey Newman. So, if you've been watching our channel or listening to our podcast, you know we're in the middle of ranking the coaches in each conference. And when it comes to the Big Ten, there is a clear top two, and they're obviously two of the top coaches in the nation. So, how do you decide between Greg Schiano or Brett Bielema? Now, of course, we're talking about Ohio State's Ryan Day and Michigan's Jim Harbaugh. And really, up until the last couple years, I think most people out there would have had Ryan Day as the strong number one, since Harbaugh, couldn't break through, was consistently losing to his rivals, Michigan State and Ohio State. But as we stand here today, this is maybe the toughest decision between two coaches in the country. It's basically splitting hairs. It can really change by the hour. But at this moment, I personally give the nod to Jim Harbaugh. There's no wrong answer, but I'll, in this episode, break down why I chose Harbaugh. So I first have to say it's less about what Ryan Day, hasn't done. It's more about what Harbaugh has done. I say this because, as you can see on this graphic, Ryan Day is 42-6, 3 top 5 finishes. Just this past season, they were a play away or, a final kick away from getting Ohio State to the national title. Some critics maybe say he was conservative when he got near scoring position or made some decisions he'd like back with the lead. But while there may be even some minor credence to that, at the end of the day, he had Ohio State ready to go up against Big Bad Georgia after everyone kind of wrote the Buckeyes off going into that game, given that they had just gotten beat by Michigan at home. And remember, before that game, there was some media pressure on him starting, as they were pointing out he'd lost back-to-back to Michigan, hadn't broke through in the playoff yet, and the defense hadn't really looked strong the last couple years. I know that the famous, standing on third base, thinking he hit a triple quote by Harbaugh, got a lot of run back in the day. And while there is some truth to that, in that, he was starting out from as good of a position as you could ask, taking over for Urban Meyer. But on the flip side, in Ryan Day's defense, he had put himself in a position by being a very successful offensive coordinator at Ohio State, meaning, if you're good enough to be a strong offensive coordinator at a top program, that means you're probably a good coach to begin with. So now let's kind of flip the page, switch over to Harbaugh. He is a winner. He's proven it over a long period of time at multiple stops. Especially winning after not inheriting the greatest situations. He turned the University of San Diego into a winner in the FCS, going 11-1 in years 2 and 3 there. He then inherited a 1-11 Stanford team, he went from 4 wins to 5 wins to 8, and then finally 12 wins, winning the Orange Bowl with Andrew Luck, who he ended up developing into the number 1 pick. And even that first year, with only 4 wins, he knocked off number 1 USC as the a 41-point underdog. It's just amazing how he gets his players to elevate their game in his system. The last 2 years at Stanford, he had Toby Gerhart and Andrew Luck finish second in the Heisman. He elevated the Cardinal to unprecedented heights. Most cases you don't even bring up what these coaches do in the pros, but you have to with Harbaugh. Look at the 49ers. They were 6-10 the year before he got there. First season gets Alex Smith playing great. They go 13-3, loses a heartbreaker in the NFC Championship game. The next 2 years, he loses late in the Super Bowl and then loses at the end of the NFC Championship game against Seattle. And, remember in this period, he also made Colin Kaepernick look incredible. So he did wonders with the 49ers. And then finally at Michigan, improved them right away. They were 5-7 the year before with Brady Hoke. 10-win season out of the gate. In fact, he had 3 10-win seasons in his first 4 years. And then, like I mentioned kind of at the top of this episode, the knock had been that he couldn't beat Michigan State, or specifically Ohio State. And even a little unfair, considering in 2016, there was a very, very questionable spot by the refs on that 4th and 1 in overtime that went Ohio State's favor. If that goes Michigan's way, they're in the playoff. But now, though, he's whipped Ohio State in resounding fashion the last couple years, been to back-to-back playoffs. He's done it with some different coordinators along the way too. I guess the new knock on him could be that, the teams are struggling in the bowl games, but I think personally that's a good problem to have when you're talking about playoff appearances. So, and as we stand here today, he's starting to pick up the recruiting as well. I think you could criticize ranking Harbaugh number one after the 2021 season when he finally broke through against Ohio State, but now he's backed it up with a second consecutive playoff appearance. And going into 2023, the Wolverines are going to be, one of the favorites to get back to the playoff and win the Big Ten. Of course, so will Ohio State. So this discussion of Day versus Harbaugh, they're going to add another chapter next year and potentially the year after. So that's why I ended up leaning with Jim Harbaugh. But like I mentioned at the top, there is no wrong answer. Thanks for watching this episode of the College Football Bros. I'm sure there's some Buckeye fans out there who don't agree, and that's totally fair. You're not crazy to have Day number one, but let me hear why you'd put him over Jim Harbaugh. Always curious to hear, other perspectives, and in this case, they're probably very valid perspectives. So please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We're going to be dropping more coach ranking episodes in the coming days. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.